Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney, is now the former CEO of Disney.
Correct.
Because the former CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, is now the CEO of Disney.
A lot of Bobs here. So let's start
Bob's
off.
out, Bob's in. Iger is coming back, basically, after 2 years after stepping away.
Ran the company from 2005 to 2020, I believe.
15 years in the CEO role.
In the CEO role. And during that time, some very impressive items. I believe it included the acquisition of Pixar, Lucasfilms,
Marvel.
Marvel.
I mean, all the big hitters for Disney.
Big pieces here. Obviously, the initial rollout of Disney Plus and planning occurred under Iger. You had, and frankly, if I think about that period of time, 2005 through 2020, and I think about the box office in terms of films, Disney dominated that entire 15-year time period. So, for a good reason, held out as a huge, successful leader of one of the largest media companies out there.
So a couple of years ago, Iger says, hey, I'm going to be stepping away, and I am going to appoint Bob Chapek as CEO.
Are we going Chapek?
That's what I'm going.
I'm going Chapek.
Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Bob Chapek as CEO, and Bob was, again, the other Bob's handpicked successor. He was the guy that Bob Iger said, that's who I want running this company in the future. And remember, Iger was actually supposed to step away later in 2020, and he sped up his retirement by, I think, either like 6 or 8 months. And it was right as the pandemic was starting, basically. And he kind of looked at it and was like, he just doesn't want to deal with this. Yeah. And he's coming back now unexpectedly. And again, this all happened very quickly.
Yes.
And the reason why, in my opinion, is when you have an unexpected CEO change, generally, and here's my view, is this was probably the board looking at Disney stock saying, oh, you haven't done well this year. What can we do? And you have to move quickly there because otherwise your existing CEO starts to line up all of his support and then it turns into a big drawn-out fight and no one wants that.
It's just interesting in that we've had another major, completely different company go the same route with Starbucks, bring Howard Schultz back earlier this year. I think back in April of this year, they brought him back as CEO there. I'd be interested in your opinion here, Chuck, because while Disney stock has certainly taken it on the chin, I really struggle to point to anything in particular that Chapek has done or Chapek has done to drive it there. I mean, you've had the entire streaming industry starting to fall apart. Okay, so maybe you can argue he spent too much money on streaming. Although I would say, hey, he's put in the price hikes that we're about to see happen here. I don't think he's done anything to mismanage the reopening of the parks. I think that has gone fairly well. And I think really what's happening is, look, this is a sector and a group of companies that as a whole is taking a hard hit. And in times like this, it's nice for investors to have their known entity of Bob Iger back in that role. That said, Iger's 71 years old. He's not doing this for a long time.
No, he has said it's gonna be a longer tenure than Howard Schultz, who said I'm only back for 6 to 8 months.
His successor's already been named, I believe. Right?
Yes. Iger said, I'm going to come back for 2 years. So basically, I'm going to stay through 2024, and then I'm going to be done. So it's a little bit longer. It's not just, hey, be the person holding down the fort until the next person comes in. It's, no, I want you to run stuff, get us back on track for a year or so, and then we'll start to transition things out at that point. So I think what's interesting to me, one of the key differences is on the Disney Plus side of things, where Iger always took the point of view of, hey, let's sell this thing cheaply, get everyone into the ecosystem. I know we're losing out on, some potential profitability, but let's grow the heck out of Disney Plus.
Which worked.
Chapek, on the other hand, is the one who's pushing forward this pretty giant price increase that's scheduled to take effect on December 8th in about 3 weeks.
About a 30% price increase from what I can
We'll
tell.
see if Iger ends up pushing back on that. Here's the interesting thing when it comes to Disney Plus, okay? If you think about the key content that's on there, you've got Star Wars and Marvel, two of the most dedicated fan bases on the planet right now in terms of adults. Then you've also got all the kids stuff. You got Moana,
Pixar
you got
and Disney.
You got all that stuff. So while there's a case to be made that you can just grow it as much as possible by keeping the price low, if you're really looking to maximize dollar value, don't you have to actually acknowledge the fact that this is basically a hostage negotiation? In that, if you are a parent of young kids, you need to have it. If you are a Star Wars fan, you need to have it.
Yeah.
And so the price could be $100 a month. And a lot of parents would say, man, I don't like Bob Iger, but I'll pay the $100 a month.